that'll stir some good questions in your noggin. So if you have any questions about Buddhism or meditation or something that I can potentially answer for you, feel free to ask. I'll do my best to answer. Yes, Vinay.
When are we starting the meditation class?
Next weekend.
And what's the theme this year?
I'm sorry, I don't know yet. That's great, yeah. Following weekend, yeah. So our meditation class is every second and fourth Saturday at 10 a.m. So today's, oh, that's right, today's the 1st, right? 1st of March. So it's not next weekend, it's the weekend after that. Technically, but I believe I may have moved it. Yeah, I'm debating how I want to proceed with the sutra class, actually, but meditation class will start the 2nd Saturday. Yep. Any other non-class related questions? So we're all enlightened? Is that what you're telling me? You have no questions?
What do you think you find what easiest to practice gratitude? What sparks the moment of gratitude?
What sparks the moment of gratitude? That's a great question. So in Buddhism, we have the practice of the six perfections, of the paramitas, right? The very first one is generosity, of dana. And generosity in this sense is the giving without the expectation of a return, right? That's true generosity. Because unfortunately, in most societal situations, we all expect please and a thank you. We expect, someone to hold the door open for you, or to wait for you, or some sort of courteous reply, right? And then if it's not given, then we kind of get, it depends on who you are. You may get a little antsy about it, or you may, like, oh, you're welcome, right? Be sarcastic back, or whatever may be the response. But that's not considered true generosity or gratitude, right? If you're doing something just for the sake of doing it because it's the right thing to do, right? Then there should be no expectation of anything, right? And gratitude will naturally flourish from that. Because true gratitude is the same as true generosity. It's the giving or the receiving without the expectation of anything from it, right? And so, of course, gratitude in general at least has many layers, right? There's different categories and different degrees of gratitude, because you can be gratitude for a friendship, you can be gratitude for the temple being here, you can be gratitude that there's service today and that I didn't cancel it, or you can be gratitude that you had food on your table, or a roof over your head, or a car to get to work, or even having a job, right? So there's different layers and degrees of gratitude. But it all still comes down to the simple fact of just kind of really making it really corny. Thanks for ... right? It's essentially what gratitude is. But from a Buddhist perspective, or at least from a practitioner, instead of kind of being grateful for things continuously, we have the practice of mindfulness and true awareness. Because if you are mindful of everything, of the things and of surroundings, of your thoughts, of your speech, of your actions, then in that, in itself, there's already a gratitude, because you're mindful of things. You're mindful of someone being courteous to you. You're mindful of someone holding the door, or someone letting you cut them off in traffic, or giving you something, or replying nicely, or whatever it may be, right? If we are mindful of those activities and those experiences, that in itself, at least for me, I would think, grows gratitude naturally. And so you don't really have to think about it too much. You don't have to remind yourself to be grateful. You don't have to remind yourself that your life is full of goodness, right? Because things just are. And it can change at any moment, right? You can just, people can just stop being nice to you all of a sudden for no reason, right? Then, well, where's the gratitude for people being nice to you now, right? What are you grateful for now if no one's nice to you, right? But kind of the moral of the story here is, just like generosity, when we are mindful and grateful for things, be aware of it as it is. No expectation, right? No expectations of who it's coming from, what it's for, what it is, how it is. Accept it for what it is, accept it for what it is as it is, because it can change at any moment. And with that change, what often happens with change? Unsatisfactoriness, perhaps, maybe some suffering with change. And so, but if there's no expectation, and then when the change happens, we accept it for what it is, versus thinking, I like it the way it used to be. It's a big part of our suffering, is we want things to stay as they are because we feel comfort with how things are. And so when things change, suffering arises. And it was a big change for me this week. I've been suffering all week. But there has to come an acceptance with such change. And if there's no acceptance of change, then you're going to continue to suffer. So, in this sense, I'm grateful for the change, because the change gives me something to meditate on. Good question.
Yeah, I think that's the time we should be more grateful or more have more gratitude than having negative circumstances, because that's like the time you're thanking to reminding or like somebody else is testing you, so thanks them for testing your temperament.
That's right.
So that's the best thing to like that. It's like selfless.
Right.
That if you feel somebody is very negative or abused you, then you're thanking them. Oh, you're reminding me
to be grateful.
To be grateful and keep my temperament in control.
Think of our normal daily experience, right? Most of us remember the negative things that happen to us versus the positive things, right? So when something positive happens, or something happy brings us happiness comes along, it's short-lived, because we're only living with it, we're only happy about it when it's actually happening. But then once it ends, right, our experience, our joy or happiness from that experience also ends, right? It's very short-lived. If something negative happens, then we cling to it, and we hold on to it for hours or days or weeks or even years, right? And so it's difficult for it's difficult for a true mindfulness or true gratitude or true generosity to arise when we're holding on to that negativity. And so when, like Vinay said, if those unwholesome circumstances arise, when negative circumstances arise, those are really great opportunities for practice. That negativity becomes your teacher. It allows you to gives you an object of meditation as well. Of course, nobody wants an object of meditation to be negative, right? Surely I don't, but at the end of the day, it is helpful. as difficult as it is helpful. Good question, good observation. Yes, ma'am.
This is our first time doing this service.
Welcome.
We practice Buddhism at home as well as Hinduism. But the chaos of the world that we're experiencing right now, in terms of practicing positivity, what is the way that we can continue to practice positivity in the mindset way, or practice them in wisdom? If you have any advice on that, because it has been tough the past few weeks.
I think the past few centuries has been tough, actually. One thing that I attempt to emphasize quite often when I get questions like that, right? Because there's a lot of times people want to do something to save the world. Since this is your first time here, you've probably never heard me say this before, but I'm going to say it again because I say it often. You can't, right? You can't save the world. Sorry. The world is doomed whether you like it or not, right? And so it's futile sometimes to attempt to believe that we truly, as an individual, have any really real power to change anything, right? To change the world. And with that acceptance of we can't, well, then what can you change? If you can't change the world, what can you change? Your mindset, yourself, right? And so, though there's chaos in the world and chaos in the environment around you, the one thing about in Buddhism, right, when we speak, especially when we're talking about nirvana or enlightenment, right? Nirvana or enlightenment isn't this abstract destination outside of somewhere in space, right? It's not somewhere we go to when we die. It's not something that we can climb to, right? Enlightenment is being able to see the beauty beyond the chaos of the world. Okay? So if you're sitting in the middle of a war zone and you have a mind that is enlightened, you can see this world, this war zone as paradise, right? Because an enlightened mind doesn't see war and peace, doesn't see burnt and not burnt, doesn't see beauty and ugliness, it doesn't see black and white, it doesn't see yes or no or right or wrong or all these dualities, right? There's no dualism in an enlightened mind. And so when we do see or hear or even potentially participate in this chaos, the only thing you can do is, one, acceptance, right? Not acceptance of the injustice, but acceptance that you don't have too much power to do much besides have a positive mindset and help others have a positive mindset and see that there's no reason to fight over this or that. There's no reason to judge this or that or to want this or that, right? Because what happens is when you do that, right? And even though, let's say you're talking to her, right? You're telling her about, think about it this way. Don't look at it as chaos or as negativity or as hatred or something evil. Because if you teach someone else how to think correctly, right, having the right view, right, then they can take that, learn it, practice it, and then speak to someone else, right? And then that person can speak to someone else. And it becomes a domino effect. That's the only way we can truly change the world. But it has to start from you first. And so acceptance becomes important here, but also knowing that the chaos that's happening is also what? But it's what? It's, sorry? Impermanent, right? So yes, war can last for decades sometimes, but it's impermanent, right? It'll eventually stop. It may not stop in our lifetime, but it'll eventually stop, right? And though that's not, okay, I'm not crazy, I hear something, okay. Though it seems so far away, right? But knowing that it's impermanent should give you some comfort, right? Those that have heard it say before know that I love impermanence. I think impermanence is the most beautiful thing to ever exist. Because if something wasn't impermanent, it can never be beautiful, right? Why do we love flowers? Right? Look at the flowers right now. Some flowers are dying, right? This is all from New Year's Eve, Lunar New Year. Some flowers are still alive, some are dying, some are in between. But we love flowers, or at least we can appreciate flowers because they are impermanent, right? Because eventually they will wither and die. And so while they're alive, we can appreciate their beauty, we can appreciate the fullness, we can appreciate the scent that they give, we can appreciate the color that they radiate. And as they start to wither and fall apart and die, do we cry over it? Do we call in sick from work because we're so depressed because the flowers are dying and dead? No. Well, then why do we feel that way when someone close to us dies or becomes ill? Or a pet, or a house, or a job? Everything else in the world that's impermanent that we lose and we become tragic over it. What is the difference between that and a flower dying? Absolutely nothing. Except for what? Your attachment to it. So when you're feeling this depression over the state of the world, it's because you're attached to what you want the world to be, which is empty of war, empty of hatred, empty of the chaos, right? You want peace, we want equality, we want justice. Well, unfortunately, that's never going to happen, right? It's never going to happen anytime soon. But the lack of all that is something we all want, right? But some people have such a degree of desire for that they become attached to, I want the world to be this way. So they become activists, right? They become lobbyists. They become, or maybe not lobbyists, but they become activists. It's the only thing I can think of. Only positive role I can think of. Or an environmentalist, right? They become these things in order to fix the world because they have such an attachment to wanting it to look how they see it in their mind. I think I went off topic quite a bit from your question, but again, still the first step is acceptance. It is what it is, right? That's kind of my motto in life. It is what it is. Worry about what you can control and let go of what you cannot. That's the only thing you can do, right? Is to worry about what you can control and let go of what you cannot. Because then if you have that mindset, then from that stems automatically the acceptance of impermanence. Can you control it? No. Can you? All right, do something about it. And from there, things just become a little bit easier and easier, right? You see the trueness of what is happening without having to step in or having the desires to step in, wanting things to change, right? as monastics, as monks and nuns, we're apolitical, right? Even before I was become a monk, I was apolitical. I don't care what happens in the world, honestly, because most of the time it won't ever affect me, for the most part. Knock on wood, right? And not because I didn't necessarily care, but because I saw how it affected people around me who did truly care, right? They did care what policies came in, even if it didn't affect them. They cared about what was changing, what was coming in, what was being taken out, all these other things. And it just brought them so much suffering. They just worried too much about nonsense. It just made no sense, right? So you're really afflicting yourself. And then from there, once you have the acceptance of, all right, I can't change this, and you recognize the impermanence of whatever's happening, the third step then, from a Buddhist perspective, is, and what we typically do, is practicing metta, loving kindness meditation. And so when you do practice metta, then we can take what is that we had to accept and recognize as impermanent and use that energy to apply to our meditation of metta, right? So in metta meditation, the kind of the formula that it goes through in the sutras and the discourses is to start with yourself, right? This is the meditation on loving kindness. The meditation of wanting all sentient beings to be free from suffering, right? That's the whole point of the meditation. But we start with ourselves first, because if you are in this situation where you're worrying about the chaos in the world, well, you're suffering, you're the first person suffering from that mentality that you're having. And so you practice meditation on yourself first. And kind of the formula of metta is may be healthy, may be free from suffering, may be healthy, may be, oh man, now I'm losing my track. May be well, may be healthy, may be free from suffering, may your mind be at ease, right? And you do that for yourself, and then you extend it to someone who is family, right? It could be your siblings, your significant others, parents, kids, whomever. And you move on to friends, move on to acquaintances, to colleagues, to strangers that you don't know, to people you dislike even, and then to all sentient beings, right? Because the point the point is to be able to, is to want that peace for all beings, regardless of who they are, right? Another practice is the four immeasurables, the Brahma Viharas, right, of compassion, loving kindness, appreciative joy, and equanimity. This is something that we also practice in meditation to extend that desire for all beings to be free from suffering. Because nobody wants to suffer, right? No animal even wants to suffer. So why are we creating an environment, a world of suffering when nobody wants to suffer? Right? You don't know these strangers, you don't know truly the people you dislike, you don't know what's going on with them. But because we have this mindset of me and you, I and them, right? There's this separation, there's this duality that we think that everything outside of ourselves is independent, is separate, it's different. But in reality, there is no separation, there's no difference. We all come from stardust, first of all, right? If you were to skin all of us, we're all going to look exactly the same underneath, right? There's no difference, true difference. Right. You come from the earth and you go back to the earth. And because we don't because we have this mentality or this idea of separation, it also separates our kindness to others, our gratitude towards others, our generosity toward others, right? How many people, whether yourselves or others that you know, that have a bias against the homelessness and those that have signs and asking for money, right? How many people think, oh, if I'm going to give them money, they're going to spend it on drugs and alcohol, right? How many times have you thought that or know someone that's thought like that? Do you actually know that's what's going to happen? Do you 100% know for a fact that this person that you're going to give $1, $2 to is going to go spend it on drugs or alcohol? No. Is that true generosity? No. If they want to spend on drugs and alcohol, let them, right? You can't dictate, hey, I'm going to give you this money, but if I give you this money, you can't spend it on drugs and alcohol. Who are you to say that, right?
But at the same time, like we have philosophy like we should do the things if there's no harm to you or somebody else. And if they are hurting themselves by drinking, and probably, let's say they drink and they kill somebody because they like too much drunk. So sometimes I get to think that, I mean, yeah, you shouldn't be judging them. I understand that part, but like at the same time, you should be careful.
That is true. I'm not stating that every homeless person is not going to spend on alcohol and drugs, right? And we do have to have an educated guess, but that's just an example. It's just an example, right? But it doesn't even have to be money. It can be time, right? You can be generous with your time. You can be generous with your actions. You can be generous with just listening, right? Some people just want to vent, and you can give them your time to listen, right? Or even someone needs a hug or a glass of water or anything, right? You can be generous and grateful for many different things. But we do have to be mindful of the habitual bias that we all naturally have when we're interacting with people, different people. Because I can guarantee almost everyone here that if you had a line of people and have them were your family, right? So there's 10 people and there's 5 family members and you only have 5 bottles of water and you're in the desert, you're probably going to give it to your family first and strangers, right? But if you were blind and deaf, and you know who is who, then how would you differentiate? That's something else I want to say, and I kind of forgot what it was. But this goes more to just, this is more physical stuff, right? Even think mentally. And the example I bring up a lot is being cut off in traffic, right? Road rage is an affliction that most people endure, right? Including myself sometimes, which is why I hate driving and I don't drive often. But it brings out a lot of ungratefulness and non-generosity. Because if you're driving and someone cuts you off, most people's normal reaction is to flip them off, to curse them out, to try to speed up and cut them off too, right? To teach them a lesson. But if you think of it as the same thing with strangers, you have no idea what's going on with them that caused them to cut you off in the first place, right? There could have been bleeding out and they're trying to rush to the hospital. There's someone in the back seat trying to give birth, right? Or they're trying to rush to see someone dying before they take their last breath, right? A plethora of things can be happening to them that cause them to cut you off. You have no idea. But because you're so selfish and you're so egotistical and you're thinking, how dare they cut me off? Who do they think they are? And so then you try to go and do the exact same thing. Well, if you do, then you have a very high chance of potentially causing an accident, right? So you can either hurt yourself and you can hurt others, you can potentially kill yourself or kill others. Was all that worth it just because someone took 2 seconds out of your time? Stupidity. But it happens so often. But that's another moment, that's an excellent, when driving, and I have to remind myself of this too, when driving, is the most teachable moments for many people. Because it allows you, because you have to be mindful, right? We have to practice defensive driving, right? So in and of that self is already a practice of meditation. It is meditation. Assuming you're not doing 10 million things at once while driving, which you shouldn't, right? Because you should be concentrating on the ground, on the road. But it's an excellent time to meditate. And that way, when things do happen, so if someone does cut you off, whether it's traffic, or people are driving erratically, instead of cussing them out, cursing them out, flipping them off, doing whatever you typically do, you can pause and just recognize that something had happened that we did not necessarily want to happen, right? This goes back to what I was saying earlier, because we want the world to be in a certain way. We want people to act in a certain way, to do things in a certain way, according to how our perspective of it, according to our perspective. When they go against that, then we suffer. Likewise, when someone cuts us off because it goes against what we want when we're driving, we suffer. So we really have to be mindful and aware of how our thoughts are running rampant in our minds. Because when that anger arises, when that dissatisfaction with the world arises, when someone cuts us off and the frustration that arises, it has nothing to do with anything outside of yourself. That anger that arose was not caused by the person that cut you off. The chaos and the destruction or the satisfaction we see in the world happening is not because of that. Someone blew you off or ghosted you or whatever, you're blaming them, that's not on them either. All those feelings, all those emotions, all those perceptions that you're feeling are all you. They're all 100% you. No one can ever cause you to feel a certain way. Causes can happen, things can happen, right? And depending on the conditions of those causes, it may stir up certain emotions and feelings within you. But it is never because of something else outside of you. You can never cause me happiness. You can never cause me suffering. Only I can cause my own happiness, my own suffering. And so if you're blaming other people or blaming other things, you're just lazy. Right? Oh, why did they do this? Why did they say that? Why did this happen? Who cares? Oh my God, hush. It's on you. Right? But nobody, of course, wants to take responsibility, unfortunately, because that's too much work. If we do take responsibility for our own thoughts, speech, and actions, then you can hold yourself accountable for your own happiness or your own suffering. Right?
Yes, I want to add, you telling that you should think you have no control, and that is explained very well in the first noble truth. Means if we understand there is suffering, or according to your newer philosophy, life is suffering, then it's everything is fine. Once we understand, we grasp that first noble truth, or in fact called four noble truth, then we understand the chaos or whatever there is, it's going to have to be there. It has to be all the, like you gave the example of flower, it blooms and dies. Same thing with the planets, all these planets get all, all everything has to be, and even your life is temporary. Every breathing, you die and born again. So that's suffering all the time. But how we take these, if we see the things as they are, or the way you explain, like means take it like what you have a little thing like it is what it is.
Yeah.
Or see the things as they are. It's not neither beautiful nor ugly, as they are. And there's no chaos, no suffering, and that's the first noble truth.
Right. Because the moment we are born, you're gonna suffer, right? Birth is suffering. What it teaches us, there's 8 sufferings. Birth is suffering, aging is suffering, sickness is suffering, death is suffering, being away from those we love is suffering, being with those that we dislike is suffering, not getting what we want is suffering, and the flourishing of the 5 aggregates, which is form, feeling, perception, mental formation, and consciousness, is suffering. And so the moment we are born, we're going to suffer whether you want to or not, right? But the difference, what makes that okay, I guess, right, is that we understand that suffering exists, right? But we also know that the absence of suffering also exists, right? Because you're not suffering 100% of the time all the time, but you're also not suffering 100% all the time either, right? So there's that middle way that we practice, right? There's that middle path that there's some suffering and there's some non-suffering, and sometimes they intermingle, sometimes there's more of one and then the other, sometimes there's none at all, right? It fluctuates. But it's within that fluctuation that should give you some solace, right? Of course, nobody wants to suffer all the time. I can't imagine someone wanting to be happy all the time either. I think that would be exhausting, right? And so we want to be in a state of acceptance. That's the key of our practice, is regardless of whatever happens, whether it's good or bad, wholesome, unwholesome, really heavy on the suffering or really heavy on the happiness, accept it for what it is and take it as it is in that moment, because it will what? Pass, right? So that suffering that you have will pass. What happiness that you have will pass. And there's no reason to cling and hang on to it and become attached to it, right? Because that attachment, which is the second noble truth, the attachment to our desire, is what truly causes suffering. Because we know suffering exists. But the reason why we continually suffer is because we have these attachments to those desires. We have attachment to the desires of wanting to be successful, of wanting a big house, a fancy car, big family, lots of friends, good job, whatever it may be, like all these stupid stuff that we cling to in the world, right? And then when they end, right, maybe we lose our job, the house burns down, we got divorced, we broke up, someone died, what happens? We suffer. We feel pain. We feel dissatisfaction. We feel discomfort, right? Which is fine. I'm not saying that it's wrong to feel those things. What's wrong is to cling and hang on to them, thinking that your life is over because of whatever situation happened, right? But if you accept it for what it is and still grieve, right? When someone has passed away, you can still grieve, you can still feel sad, we can still feel all these emotions that naturally occur within our human body. But not to cling to them, not to think that they will last forever, not to think that this is just how life is going to be like now. I'm always going to be sad, or I'm always going to be depressed, I'm always going to feel this or that. No, it will pass. So the acknowledgement, the realization of that impermanence is what will free you from suffering. That way you can just take in and accept whatever's happening in the moment as it's happening, knowing that's going to be impermanent, and just let it pass. That way there's nothing to hold on to. It's like just something happens, pick it up, acknowledge it, put it back down. Right? If you're reading a book at home, do you carry the book with you everywhere you go? Because you're afraid to lose it, you're afraid to that something will happen to it, that'll slide underneath the table or bed or something, and you'll find it, something will fall on it, water will get on it. Because you're so afraid of it, you're clinging to it, and you're taking it everywhere you go. In the bath, in the shower, in the room, when you go to work, when you go to bed, you're clinging to it, thinking that's gonna disappear on you. But the more you cling to it, and the more you take it with you everywhere, the more damage it'll actually get. Versus if you just read it, and you're done with it, and you place it down, and just move on and live your life, and you come back to it, and it's perfectly fine. You just pick it back up, and read it, and put it back down. That's how our life should be. You take things and put it back down. There's no reason to hold on to it. Oof, that was a big rant. Thank you.
What is the way that we can assist ourselves to continue to practice that?
Self-compassion is important. And being okay with the not okay, right? But self-compassion is very important in our practice because we have to acknowledge that. So in Buddhism, at least in our tradition, right, we have there's the practice of that we will all become Buddhas one day, right? We all have that Buddha nature. We all have the potential for enlightenment, regardless of who, what, or where you are. We have the potential for enlightenment. But that potential will never arise if we are stuck behind a wall, behind this veil of darkness within ourselves, right? And so if we allow ourselves to be stuck, then we will never be able to kind of break down those walls that are holding us back. We'll never be able to plug in this hole that's seeping out our energy that we need in order to practice and to feel that compassion. So kind of going back to the metta meditation, use that instead of, and especially especially if we're using it for yourself, we can kind of discount kind of the others in that meditation and just focus on ourselves. Focus on yourself. Because just like an emergency in an airplane, right? When the oxygen masks come down, they always tell you put your mask on first before you help others, right? So our practice is the exact same thing. We have to be able to help ourselves before we can help others. Because if you do not know, there's no way you're going to be able to help others. No, right? If you don't know how to feel self-compassion for yourself, how are you going to feel compassion for others? Right? If you don't understand the practice or how to meditate, then there's no way you're going to be able to explain it to others. So we sit and remind ourselves that, you know what? I'm full of suffering. I am suffering. I am imperfect. My practice is imperfect. There's all this chaos in me. I have all this regret. I have all this other things, regrets, unwholesomeness, shame, right? Envy, jealousy, all these different emotions and feelings that come about, right? That cause us to feel incomplete or broken, potentially. One of the downsides of meditation is that it brings up all this negativity, right? And when that negativity arises and we recognize it in ourselves, that we are all this negativity, it discourages a lot of people. Like, I don't want to feel all this negativity, so I'm going to stop meditating, right? It becomes dangerous, potentially. It becomes dangerous if we don't know what to do with it. But as practitioners, we understand that the past is the past. There's no changing it, right? We can wish and want and hope and beg as much as we want. There's no change in the past. Unless someone has a time machine, please let me borrow it. I desperately need it. But we don't. So there's no reason to dwell on it as much as we allow ourselves to dwell on it. There's no point, right? It happened. There's no changing it. All we can do is accept what had happened, learn from it, and know that in the future we need to do better. Because we cannot change the past and we cannot predict the future, right? The mind is obsessed with time. It's obsessed with the past and it's obsessed with the future because those are the only two moments that the mind can control, bringing you back to past regrets and traumas and hardships and all the stuff, right? The mind begs you to think of those things. But then it also forces you to think of the future. Oh, this would happen if you don't do this. This could happen. This happened because of that in the past happened, right? So those are the only two moments that the mind has any control over. It does not have any control of the present moment, which is why it's difficult, why meditation is difficult, right? Because when we're trying to meditate in the present moment and on our breath, the mind's like, no, I don't like this. Let's think about that argument we had with our parents 2 weeks ago, or significant other 2 weeks ago. Let's think about where we want to go to vacation next year, or what we want for dinner tomorrow, right? And so when the mind is dragging you in 5,000 different ways, that's why meditation is so difficult for a lot of people. So you need to bring it back to the present moment and bring it back to your breath and recognize that that is the only thing you have control over. So come back to the breath. Be compassionate with yourself, right? Be nice to yourself, essentially, right? Because there's no guarantee that anybody else is going to do anything for you, right? Nobody can do anything for you, right? So let's come back to the breath. That's our practice. It's my practice. It's coming back to the breath. Thank you.
Sometimes the mind is too foggy, then like why meditation helps find out the root cause, because everything is chemistry, cause and action. Ultimately, like you see anything is happening in the world and you kind of attach to this impermanent thing, but it's cause and action, it's natural. Or in sowing and reaping, whatever you sow, everything will reap that. So ultimately, it boils down to you yourself, and whether it's sowing and reaping or cause and action, or you can say karma, like it's whatever you do. So it is whatever is happening for the reason. You don't have to. Why meditation helps mostly to identify the problem, and then you can do the meta meditation, love and kindness.
Everything is cause and effect, right? And the difficulty that most of us would go through, and probably even you'd go through, is the idea or the mindset that I wish I did something different, right? Regret, essentially, right? Regret is probably the biggest or the strongest emotion that causes the mind to think, oh, I wish things were different. But just like in Buddhism, when we practice repentance, right? We repent every 2 weeks. It's not an act of seeking forgiveness, right? Because yeah, we're bowing and we do all these, rituals and whatnot, but the Buddha doesn't care for your forgiveness. Right? They're not here to forgive you, right? They're not even physically here. And so when we repent, it's not the request for forgiveness or to seek a power saying it's okay, right? Patting the man's like, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. No, we repent in order to remind ourselves we did something wrong. I feel remorse for it, or regret, or shame, or whatever emotion that brings it up. And then you make a promise to yourself that you will not repeat it again in the future. Because that's the only way you can guarantee that it won't happen again. Right? So when we take precepts, for instance, those that take the 5 precepts, these aren't rules and regulations or commandments, right? These are self-promises telling yourself, these are self-promises to keep yourself accountable of your thoughts, speech, and actions. Right? Okay. Yeah, a couple more minutes if anybody has one last question.
I wanted to ask a question in terms of clinging and attaching yourself to things. So obviously, the past. How do you rid of intrusive thoughts, past negative experiences that you won't allow to dictate your current? What is the philosophy behind it?
Kind of the same thing, right? Worry about what you can control and let go of what you cannot, right? Intrusive thoughts are just that. They're thoughts of past mistakes or regrets or whatever it may be, right? Or maybe not even something even happened at all, right? It could be a made-up story of what you think had happened or you think will happen, right? But again, it goes, the practice is the same. You go back to the breath and accept, think of it as a meditation, right? Because meditation is not just sitting on the cushion and meditating. Meditating could be a 24-hour ordeal if need be. Meditation is in every mundane action we do, right? So when you have an intrusive thought, think of it as the same thing as you would when you're sitting in meditation and a distraction arises. Because when we sit in meditation and you're focusing on the breath, or you're counting, or whatever your object of meditation is, and a thought arises, right? Or a distraction arises, or you hear the door open, or someone move, or cough, or the phone goes off. What we do in meditation is simply acknowledge whatever is happening, label it, right, as thought, as sound, as door, as dog barking, as phone ringing. Because the moment the mind acknowledges, the moment the mind is aware of, the moment you bring awareness to your mind of that object, the mind kind of like, all right, you caught me. It'll just naturally dissipate on its own. So intrusive thoughts or this kind of consistent thinking input that happens, we react to it in the same way. Go back to the breath, acknowledge or make the label that a thought has arisen, or these intrusive thoughts have arose, and give it a one-word label, and it'll dissipate. It'll move on, right? We're not yet masters of our mind. You can be, right? Clearly, we're not masters of our mind because we're allowing our mind to cause us suffering. But we can become masters of our mind. It's not easy, right? It may not be perfected either, but with practice, right, the mind is a muscle. Same way we go to the gym and work out, right? You can't just go once and expect yourself and call yourself a bodybuilder, right? It takes effort, it takes diligence, it takes time. The mind is the same way. You have to kind of essentially reprogram it to do what you want it to do, or for it to react, I guess I should say, the way it should be reacting. Because if you're reacting to your thoughts, and that's the other important piece, is how we react to things. Because it's the reaction that causes the potential suffering or the non-suffering that comes after that. Right? How do we react when someone cuts us off? How do we react when intrusive thoughts arise? How do we react when something negative arises? That reaction is going to become the building blocks of what happens next. Right? So again, it just goes back to the breath, label it, and let it go. The mind doesn't want to be chaotic, right? The mind's not that stupid. It's a little stupid, but it's not that stupid, right? It doesn't want to suffer. But because it doesn't know anything else, it does that. So we have to teach it. We have to give it practices, exercises. These exercises, meditation, mindfulness, awareness of how our thoughts, speech, and actions are happening. Beautiful. All right, we're out of time. Way over time. But if anybody doesn't have any other questions, please feel free to ask after the chanting. But please join me in invoking the Buddha's name 3 times, and then we'll go to chanting. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. For any positive karmic action we've accumulated here today, we wish to transfer the merit to all sentient beings and wish them full enlightenment. Please go to page 187. Ring the bell once, Linda. Body, speech, and mind in perfect oneness, I send my heart along with the sound of the bell. May the hearers awaken from forgetfulness and transcend all anxiety and sorrow. Listen, listen, this wonderful sound brings me back to my true home. In gratitude we offer this incense to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas throughout space and time. May it defrag as earth herself, reflecting our careful slowly ripening, may we and all beings be companions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. We awaken, get fullness, and realize our true home. The incense in the censer now is burning, all the Dharma realm in every place, auspicious clouds appearing, our sincere intention thus fulfilling, as all Buddhas now show their perfect body. Homage to the incense cloud canopy, Bodhisattva and great Bodhisattva. Homage to the eternally abiding Buddhas, the supreme Dharma and sagely Sangha throughout the Dharma and the realm of empty periods of time. Homage to the fundamental teacher Shakyamuni Buddha Maitreya, honored future Buddha Manjushri, great wisdom Bodhisattva, universal great conduct Bodhisattva, all Dharma guarding Deva Bodhisattvas, and the glorious fountain assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Homage to Amitabha Buddha in the land of ultimate bliss of Avalokiteshvara, great compassion Bodhisattva, great strength Bodhisattva, earth's or great vow Bodhisattva, and the assembly of great pure sea like Bodhisattvas. Please sit down. down to the verse for opening sutra. The unsurpassed, profound, and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in hundreds of millions of eons. I now see and hear it, receive and uphold, and I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Thus I have heard at one time the Buddha dwelt Ashravasi in the Jeta Grove in the garden of the benefactor of orphans and the solitary. Late at night a deva appeared whose light and beauty made the whole grove shine radiantly. After paying respects to the Buddha, the deva asked him a question, saying, many gods and men are eager to know what are the greatest blessings which bring about a peaceful and happy life. Please, Tathagata, will you teach us? The Buddha replied, not to be associated with the foolish ones who live in the company of wise people, honoring those who are worth honoring. This is the greatest happiness, to live in a good environment, to have planted good seeds, and to realize that you are on the right path. This is the greatest happiness, to have a chance to learn and grow, to be skillful in your profession or craft, practicing the precepts and loving speech. This is the greatest happiness, to be able to serve and support your parents, to cherish your own family, to have a vocation that brings you joy. This is the greatest happiness, to live honestly, generous and giving, to offer support to relatives and friends, living a life of blameless conduct. This is the greatest happiness, to avoid unwholesome actions, not caught by alcoholism or drugs, to be diligent in doing good things. This is the greatest happiness, to be humble and polite in manner, to be grateful and content with a simple life, not missing the occasion to learn the Dharma. This is the greatest happiness, to preserve and be open to change, to have regular contact with monks and nuns, and to fully participate in Dharma discussions. This is the greatest happiness, to live diligently and attentively, to perceive the noble truths and to realize nirvana. This is the to live in the world with your heart on perception, nor mental formation, nor consciousness, no eye or ear or nose or tongue or body or mind, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of mind, no realms of elements, their dependent origins, and no extinction of them, no ill-being, no cause of ill-being, no end of ill-being, and no path, no understanding, no attainment, because there is no attainment. The bodhisattvas grounded in prajnaparamita find no obstacles for their minds. They overcome fear, liberating themselves forever from illusion and realizing perfect nirvana. All Buddhas in the past, present, and future arrive at Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Therefore, one should perfect understanding is the highest mantra, the unequaled mantra, the destroyer of ill-being, the incorruptible truth, the mantra of Prajnaparamita should therefore be proclaimed. Gate gate para gate para samgate bodhi swaha. Gate gate para gate para samgate bodhi swaha. Gate gate para samgate bodhi swaha. Om mani padme hum, 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 om mani padme, om mani padme hum, 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 om mani padme, mani padme hum, om 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 mani padme hum. May all beings without limits, without end, have a share in the merit just now made, and in whatever other merits I have made, those who are hearing kind to me, beginning with my mother and father, whom I have seen or never seen, and others neutral or hostile beings established in the cosmos, the three realms, the four modes of birth, with 5, 1, or 4 aggregates wandering on from realm to realm. They know of my dedication of merit, may they themselves rejoice, and if they do not know, may the devas inform them by reason of their rejoice in my gift of merit. May all beings always live happily, free from animosity. May they attain nirvana and their radiant hopes be fulfilled. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and of love. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. Dwelling in the refuge of Buddha, I clearly see the path of light and beauty in the world. Dwelling in the refuge of Dharma, I learn to open many doors on me, keeping my practice free of obstruction. Taking refuge in the Buddha, in myself I aspire to help all people recognize their own awakened nature, realizing the mind of love, taking refuge in the Dharma. In myself I aspire to help all people master the ways of practice and walk together on the path of liberation, taking refuge in the Sangha. In myself I aspire to help all people hold communities, to embrace all beings and support their transformation. Reciting the sutras, practicing the way of awareness gives rise to benefits without limits. We vow to share the fruits with all beings. We vow to tribute to parents, teachers, friends, and new